Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. It's the Ancient One here, the Bachelor Supreme, the master of the deceptive arts, the Phantom Menace, and he who remains. And I want to talk today about the question whether you will remain. And in particular, what I want to tell you talk about is why you will fail as a bachelor. And ultimately, you will either end up having kids because you didn't get a vasectomy, or you will end up bending the knee. If you look at the graph on the screen, I have two of them, and I suppose I'll show one in the first half of the video and another in the second half. It doesn't really take a lot of understanding or perception to be able to quickly see what this graph tells you. And it pretty much tells you, well, the header is the likelihood of being married at least once, and this is broken up by age and pretty much by generation, right? So we have the 1960s, the 1980s, the early 2000s, and from 2019 onwards. And then you have the percentages on the side, and then you have all the ages going from 15 to 60 and beyond. And what you'll very clearly see is the graph starts very low and then shoots all the way up. From about 25, it just keeps going up, and peaks in and around 45 years old, and continues at that peak to the end of time, right? So, it got me thinking, why your bachelor life will fail. And looking at these statistics, you can very clearly see that it is at a 90% rate, right? So the older you get, the fewer the bachelors you find, right? And not only that, effectively it tells you that in truth, the bachelors that are out there are all children. They're all young, right? These are people under the age of 30. Over 30, they all either have children or they're married or both, or have been married, right? So marriage is an absolutely likely outcome, right? It is more than just a possibility. It is pretty much a definite guaranteed result. If you don't get married at least once in this life, you are going to have children. What does that tell you? It tells you that the failure rate of the bachelor life is somewhere in the region of 90, 99%, almost 100%. You're not going to make it. And I say it every day. You're not going to pull this off. You're not going to be able to calculate your way through all of these many infinite realities, all clashing and colliding. And as you can see, they are all moving in the same direction at the same time, right? This is our timeline. This is where we are. We are in a situation where everyone is headed towards marriage. But for those men who do decide to walk the bachelor life, right? And some men will struggle with the bachelor life. They even went as far as to name the struggle the male loneliness crisis, right? The male loneliness epidemic. And by looking at these statistics, it's it's a contradictory thing. How is there a male loneliness crisis when you look at these statistics and these statistics are telling you that you are at like a 90% chance of getting married? Now, you can clearly see that the later generations, and they have it in red here, cited in 2019, which isn't that long ago. But you'll see that, so the people that are getting married in 2019 were probably born in the mid or late 90s, right? So, and the ones in getting married in the 2000s were probably born in the 80s and so forth, right? In their mid 20s, 25 and so on and beyond. But you can see very clearly that the 2019 line indicates not just a drop in the number of marriage, a slight, very minute drop. I mean, we're still all the way up in the 90s. But in the earlier ages, there's a drop and a delay, right? So it tells you that fewer people are getting married early, right? So it's not that people aren't getting married, they're just not getting married as early as before. So you're not 22 years old and already married. You're starting later, but still it catches up. By the time you're 50, that number's caught, that percentage has caught all the way up. So all that's happened is that people have delayed the inevitable, but you haven't actually changed anything. And again, this is why so many male movements fail, because ultimately, you're not going to change anything. You might delay your behavior for some time, but eventually you're going to go out there, right? You're going to go out there, you're going to socialize, you're going to meet someone, you're eventually going to find someone pregnant, and you're going to get them pregnant. Right, you're gonna find someone attractive, I beg your pardon. You're gonna like someone, and then you're gonna get them pregnant, right? So, why do bachelors go out there to begin with? Why is it that when you've hit your monk mode, and you've been killing it in the gym, and you lost 10, 15 kilograms, right? 50 pounds or so, you got your money up, you sorted out your education, now you're right on track, or you're on your way to graduating, or you've graduated, you've worked on yourself, you've improved yourself, you've read the self-help books, you've listened to the channels, and you are the best version of yourself, right? You keep going like this, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then what happens? What happens in truth is you get bored, right? You start to, those successes that were first initially difficult, they start to become your norm. So, you start to exercise at the same time every day. You're starting to eat the regular type of food every day. Your job that was once difficult and challenging, you now have it down pat. You know what's coming, you know what to expect, you're prepared. So when time comes to execute, you can be effective. What happens is that boredom causes what they call an existential crisis, right? So let's look at this word existentialism. What is it, right? Existentialism is a philosophy emphasizing individual existence. So the word existence mean to have life, or to exist, to be real. So individual existence, one's real life. Freedom, in other words, liberty or autonomy, freedom of movement, freedom of choice. and personal responsibility, right? Which is self care. So it's a philosophy emphasizing individual existence, freedom, and personal responsibility. So this is really what the bachelor life is about, right? Enjoying your life, living your life, being free, and taking care of yourself instead of having somebody take care of you. So, an existential crisis then is a period, this can be a short or long time, of deep questioning about the meaning of life, one's purpose, and one's place in the world, right? So, once you've built that up, and this is really where some popular online modern movements have failed. I'm not going to mention them every time, by name, especially because, try not to get sued, try not to get sued or banned again, right? But very many modern day movements induce this feeling, right? So, what they'll do is they'll give you all the right advice and they'll send you out of the romance war. They'll put you on the sideline where you'll be able to do the work that you need to do to develop. But once you start to show any progress, any improvement, then they say, well, you need to go get a woman. And when you do get that woman, you can see with the statistics on the screen where that's headed. So you go all the way up in your bachelor life. Then, when you're successful, they put you back into the romance wars, and you know, the inevitable happens, right? You get someone pregnant, or you get married, or worst case scenario, you're in the dark dimension where you have both a wife and the kids. And in truth, I've experienced this myself, right, to some extent. And I do understand its onset, right? At at the very least, from a bachelor or a vasectomite's point of view, I can tell you that this does truly get monotonous, right? And I can understand why a lot of men would then go and seek company, right? I have all this time, even if you make videos, right? I'm making a video for an hour. There's 24 hours of the day, right? And the rest of the time is really spent freely, right? Just free flowing. Whatever comes to mind and interests me, I can entertain that, right? Essentially, your problem is going to be boredom, right? Once you get bored, what are you gonna do? Because you get tired, of always trying out new things. You get tired of traveling. I mean, how many trips can you take? Right? Seriously, how many trips can you take? You'll ask yourself these questions, right? And I believe I have an answer for this, a real answer, right? But in truth, when you are on vacation and you are traveling, right, as somebody who's done a fair bit of traveling myself, there comes a point where you ask yourself, couldn't I do something else with this money? Right? Couldn't I set another goal or do something more? Because when you are on holiday, you have to understand that most people are themselves still at work, right? So they work at the resort or the hotel or the restaurant or wherever you are. So you're the only one that's pretty much on vacation. You're the only one living the bachelor life. Look at the statistics if you don't believe me, right? The older you get, the fewer the bachelors become. In fact, there are no bachelors. There are no bachelors, no true vasectomites at least, no bachelors with no wives and no kids. And the ones that don't, they will. It's an absolute guarantee. I mean, it really comes down to no matter how awesome the activity is, right? I mean, how many jet skis can you ride? How many helicopter rides can you ride? How many skyline views can you see? How many new restaurants? How many hotels? How many visas? How many flights can you actually take? How many times can you go to a new place, not like it, and think, you know what, I should have just gone to the place that I already know and already like, right? This is existentialism, right? Eventually, what was new becomes normal, and what's normal becomes old, right? And what's old becomes mundane. Like, think of the people who live at the beach, right? They never go to the beach. People who live in beach towns don't have time to go sit on the, for 2, 3 hours every weekend and look at the water. They really don't. And I've stayed in some awesome beach towns and I never went to the beach, right? Because most of the time you're at work, you're at home, you've got activities and other things to do. And unless that activity is planned exclusively at the beach, you're not going to the beach just for the beach's sake. It's only the people who live away from the beach and they'll come and spend the whole day at the beach. They'll stay at the resort where they can see the beach every day because they never see it. And this is why divorced men make the best bachelors, right? The Bachelor 2.0, the born again bachelor, right? He who returns, right? They make the best bachelors. They are not going back into the dark dimension, right? So, in truth, what was once exciting has become ordinary, regular, and it becomes routine. Even traveling becomes routine. You sort of you know when to leave, when to arrive. You can time the customs. You sort of understand how the line moves, why they're asking you to take off your shoes. You just take them off. You don't even care anymore. Even if your socks have holes, you don't care. You just take off the shoes, move to the other side, put them back on, and go. You're never going to see these people anyway. Who cares if they see that your socks have holes? You know, it is what it is. You know. Now, this ironically doesn't necessarily mean that you want to just lose everything or you want to let go of the bachelor life. It effectively means that you just want to find meaning in this bachelor life, right? Value. You want to know that somebody values this bachelor life. And I'm going to demonstrate by using these statistics just how rare the bachelor life is. And because it's rare, it is therefore valuable, if you ask me. But but what was once a dream, has become reality. And in truth, reality requires maintenance and work. And that work can become quite laborious. So, excuse me, you set a standard and say, I'm a traveling man. I'm an international man of mystery. I'm a bachelor. I am the bachelor supreme. This is the life that I'm going to live. And to live that life requires maintenance, right? So, for one, I can't be the bachelor supreme and be out of shape. I cannot call myself the Bachelor Supreme and be wallowing in debt. I can't be the Bachelor Supreme and be living at home, sharing a place with my parents, right? In fact, I can't be the Bachelor Supreme and be sharing rent with anyone, right? That would be a contradiction. And a contradiction is always the lie, right? So, this is true of every great modern adventure, right? Even if you love to travel initially, eventually you're gonna need to plan it. You're gonna need to book things in advance. You're gonna need to keep a tight schedule because when you're traveling, it's not, especially if you have activities, right? And you're going to like the other side of the world to a different hemisphere. So you're going to need to keep a really tight schedule, right? And you need to make sure you don't double book things, you don't get the times confused. You need to change the times on all your devices so you don't get, you know, delayed or wake up too early, right? You also need to have like rest, right? But not too much rest because you don't want to be too tired. And then there's the budget, right? Then there's the budget. Then you got to book the flights. You got to make sure your passport is enough pages and the dates are still active. Some places require immunizations. You're leaving your country, so you're going to need currency exchange. These things can all become laborious, right? And then you sort of desire a purpose to them, right? So a lot of guys will travel to create content or travel to enrich their mind, as they say. But how many times can you enrich your mind, right? So the first couple of times it's great. So if you're traveling to Asia, next time you want to go to Europe, next time you want to go to South America, next time you want to go to North America, next time you want to hit Africa, the first couple of times it's excellent, but the 100th time you do it, not so much, right? And also, as you go, as you age with time, you become older, you become experienced, you become mature, right? You become the older statesman, as they say, right? And you pick up the old been there, done that attitude, right? Which is normal and is natural, but that makes it predictable. So you can anticipate having these feelings once you've done something enough times, right? It's kind of like when you buy a luxury car. It's a wonderful thing to have, but then you need to, now you got to buy tires for a Ferrari. Now you got to change the oil in the Ferrari. Now you got to do maintenance on a Ferrari. And it can get expensive, right? It can get predictable, like I said, and predictable can become boring, right? So if you lived enough cycles of life, you start to see that in fact life does have a repetitiveness to it, right? So you might be at a certain stage in your life, but there are people who've been to that same stage. Now, we are at that stage of their life, but a different stage in existence. So we have different technology, different communications. Some of the old technology absolutely still exists, most of it does, but we are all leaning towards different types of technology. So it does make it less mundane to exist in this type of world. But once you've mastered that technology and you realize that what all they've done is replace all of your old activities with more efficient ways of getting there, right? So instead of having to call a travel agent to make your bookings, you can do all your bookings online, and get your tickets and get everything ready, right? But still, you come to a point where you know what to expect, and if the unexpected happens, you can deal with it. And if you can't deal with it, then the lawyer can, right? Then you can pay someone because you're an older bachelor, right? As you get older, you start to have more resources. Better resources means better problem solving. But in truth, wherever you go in the world, what you're going to find out is that the sky is still blue, right? Water is still wet. The wind still blows and the sun is hotter than ever, right? So what happens is that because you've experienced so much, so they are the 20 years that I talk about. And these years, I'd say, are somewhere between 25 and 45, the golden years, your most productive years. So this is right after you've graduated college and until maybe you've been promoted. I mean, you're just under CEO level at 50 years old. 25 years, 25 years of experience. I mean, if you're not at the peak of your company, you're at the peak of your levels of skills, right? And at 45, maybe 50, you still have the power for execution. But most people spend those years raising kids, right? And if you are spending those years living life, right, after a while, the crowd gets younger and younger because older people start to retreat, and these statistics show that the older people start to retreat into their older life, and so do you, right? You might hit monk mode, which is temporary, but you have to understand when you come out of monk mode, you'll be older, a few months older, a few years older, right? Some bachelors will retreat all the way into the solitude and just, live a life, live their entire life monk mode. But that's rare. That's very rare. I mean, there aren't enough bachelors to begin with, and the idea that a bachelor would just retreat into the solitude for eternity and never come out for, other than their necessities, is very, very rare. So I just changed the screen to continue our discussion, but this is just a different graph that pretty much shows exactly the same statistics, right? So we'll pick up with monk mode, but I just wanted to just show you what it says here, and I hope it comes out very clearly. But at the top in the green, it says married at least once, right? And then at the very top of it, it has the percentages on the left and the ages from 18 to 75. In the previous graph, we had it right up to 60, and it sort of correlates. But as you can see, past 60, it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And at the bottom, you have the never married. And as I mentioned before, right, they are all grouped in together in their teens and in their 20s. This is where all the bachelors are. This is where all the bachelors are. They say that married men make more money than bachelors. And this is true because all the married men are old, right? All the married men are above 35. This is the working class of the world, right? From 35 to 65. And that's where most of the marriages are. The unmarried people are all teenagers, right? They're all teenagers and under 20. These are all the college students. So when they say that married men make more money than bachelors, this is a complete misrepresentation. Because what you're effectively doing is comparing the father to the son or the uncle to the nephew. You're saying that the older uncle who's 45, 50 years old has more money than the what's this now, than his teenage nephew. What they never do and they cannot is compare a 55-year-old man who's single with no wife and no kids to a 55-year-old man who's married with wife, with kids, with a bond and car payments and credit card debt, and compare those two and say, well, who's the richer? And it's obviously going to be clearly the bachelor, right? So those statistics about money are completely misleading, right? And they are unfair, right? But let's talk now about the older bachelor once more and the effects of existentialism and the existential crisis, boredom in effect, that can affect him. So extreme boredom can manifest itself in seeming even like depression, having no purpose into life, right? Now, what this can do is as you get older, as you get more tired, more weary, right? Because you're not getting fitter and stronger. Now, you could be fitter and stronger and healthier than men your age, but we just dropped that age 10 years, and the strength and fitness difference is clearly noticeable. Like you're not going to be 45 and healthier and fitter than a guy who's 35, unless that guy is really unhealthy and not taking care of himself, right? It's just how it works. So what you'll do is you'll narrow things down to really only the things that you need, that you like, and that you enjoy, right? And which is fine, right? But then there are things like intimacy, which I mean, let's be honest, you can achieve the visual results through a device, a smartphone. You can easily click your favorite website, and there you have a plethora of all types of activities, intimacy, various kinds for you, right? But as much as you want to retreat, even with the screen, right, you don't retreat all the way, right? Something remains, right? And what always remains is your biological imperative, which I call God's plan for humanity to grow and thrive and multiply, not add, multiply, right? So the screen can only do so much, it can only go so far in tampering those impulses, right? But you're not going to get rid of it all the way. The screen can only scratch the itch so far, right? It doesn't reach all the way back, it doesn't go deep enough into the skin to remove that impulse, right? So even with the screens and all that, you still have that impulse. You still have that instinct as a man. And even as a vasectomite, you still have that instinct. But if you're not a vasectomite and you look at the statistics on the screen, and what they tell you is that you are going to go back into the romance wars, into those relationships, into dating, right? And eventually, you're going to do what you always do. You're going to do what you always do, right? And you're going to get somebody pregnant. Yesterday, we had the statistics to prove that most men, they as these statistics show, that you're going to be a father later in life. Modern couples, modern generations have delayed that, but they haven't prevented it, right? So all you've done is taken something that you would have done by 24, 25, and now you're doing it by 35. But the consequences are still the same. You're still going to have to raise those kids for a minimum of 20 years, right? So this is one of the reasons why your bachelorhood is going to fail. That boredom is going to send you straight back into the romance wars that you just got out of, right? Because you're going to get tired of going out alone, eating alone, watching movies alone, traveling alone, living alone, sleeping alone, right? And the longer this goes on for, the worse it gets, right? So again, when you're young and everyone is single, it's easy to do. But when you're older and everybody is married, it becomes very, very difficult to do. Peer pressure, it really exists, right? We do have a herd mentality. And for those that don't capitulate into this, what happens is that you get ostracized, you get criticized, you get looked at as if something is wrong, right? Nobody's going to look at you as the solution to what is becoming a larger problem, right? What these statistics show eventually, I mean, we are up to 99% now. This is a very clear 99%. This is everyone. This is everyone that gets married. Absolutely everyone gets married, right? Which means that either you will get married or have kids yourself, or you will be alone as a bachelor. Hence the name, He Who Remains. You must become he who remains. You must be certain. You must just be certain that your friends, your best friend, your crew, your compatriots, your posse, whatever you call them, your comrades, all those people are going to get a woman pregnant. And while they are doing it, while they are in the process of insemination and intimacy, they will be bragging about it, right? They will be bragging about it. But I say to you, my dear bachelor, keep the end in mind. Keep the end in mind, because when they get to that destination, it's going to be catastrophic. It's going to be absolutely catastrophic. So you must be prepared to be alone in the end, right? Because you won't have those things in common with many young people. In fact, if you're in your 30s and 40s, young people see you as very, very old. A 20-year-old sees a 35-year-old as an extremely old person, right? Their view of you is the same as of their teachers, right? So when they see you, they don't see themselves there. They see you as somebody of advanced age. Even though I would say, as the ancient one, I am the ancient. There's the ancient in that implies old, right? So I'm definitely not in my teens or 20s, right? But as the ancient one, I can absolutely tell you that 35 is just a wonderful age for a bachelor. It is really maybe the best. The 20s are wonderful as a bachelor, but the 30s are really where it's happening for you a lot. It's really where you have control over your money and so much experience that you are meaningful at work. So you do have confidence in your work. Best do not get too overconfident so you can still have some ambition. But you've learned enough of the right things to be able to do them well, in your 30s, right? So it's really a wonderful time. But again, you cannot expect to have a lot of company, right? And what you'll see is that there will be people who still gravitate towards being in groups, because when there's a group dynamic in a fun situation, it makes it look like they're having so much fun. But even in a party or a beach or any type of celebration, that fun is very short lived. The bills, on the other hand, they are ongoing, right? So remember that before you get bored and go back into those romance wars, because you're going to destroy everything, right? But there's a certain point in life as a bachelor where you've really truly done everything. There are so many times that you can drive luxury vehicles before it becomes normal. There are so many times that you can travel on wonderful planes before they become normal. You can even anticipate the cost and the experience, right? To the point where you may have even become famous in some circles. Maybe not world famous like a Hollywood blockbuster. You don't have that that Hollywood monster money, those billions and billions, and those loans to support the billions, and the infrastructure to support the loans. You don't really have that kind of money, but you can get some recognition in your area of life, in your field. You might even be able to garner some success online to a certain degree, right? And monetize that success. So you've lived a lot of life, right? But you still have a lot of life to live. With enough money and enough room, you can really accomplish all of those goals in about 10 or 15 years. You really, like 10 years, you could be somebody completely different. And you probably will be, even if you stay in the same area and the same field. Eventually, the people that are running things retire, and they're going to push you up anyway, because the people coming behind you, they won't know what to do, and they may not share anything in common or relate with older generations, so they may look to you, right? So, in those 20 years, you do live a lot of life, or you live no life at all. If you are in that green section, married at least once, it implies the possibility of a child, right? So instead of traveling and living and studying and saving your money, right? Over those 20 years, what you're doing is you're folding towels, and you're folding those towels over and over and over again, raising kids, paying bills, going to teacher parents' conferences, you're arguing with your wife and her moods, you're going to all of her family's things. Her niece is pregnant again. Her nephew is in jail again. Her sister needs a loan again. Her other sister's getting kicked out of her flat again, right? Her mother's in hospital again. You know what I mean? And these 20 years that you spend caring for those other people, bachelors are spending that time living and getting better at living, right? But even then, like, there's only a limit to all the things that you have to deal with. Whereas compared to married men, to the knee benders, they are constantly dealing with issues. If it's not issues with your wife and her circle of disaster, it's issues with each and every one of your kids, and each and every one of them has a circle of disaster just as big as your wife's, right? And bachelors don't spend those years dealing with those problems. So it means that we have so much more time to look inward. And when you look inward and find no problems to fix, that can induce a certain monotony to life. That monotony can lead you to boredom. That boredom can cause a frustration that may cause the existential crisis, right? But then you got to remember that, even that relationship that you want to go into is inevitably going to be temporary. These numbers don't demonstrate the divorce rate, and perhaps I'll do one that does demonstrate the divorce rate. I think seeing it graphically has a sort of vivid effect on men rather than, you know, showing articles or discussing it like the graph. You have a way of analyzing it for yourself and applying meaning to those statistics that affect you. But even if you're still married, you're still going to get divorced, right? The benders, they get divorced and they break up all the time. And when they do, there may be a child. So if the average marriage lasts 8 to 10 years and you have a baby 1 year in, you're looking at a 7 to 9 year old, right? 10, 11, 12 maybe, right? You still have something like 8 to 10 years of child support. Add the alimony on that. And then add another 4 years of university, which is really going to be your most expensive years, right? You're going to be paying a lot for that university in the future, right? And it's only after that, when your kids are out working for themselves, then do you actually start to experience this freedom as a man. And that's why married men make the best bachelors, because they have to work so extra hard for their freedom, and they've lost so much time. Like, the money is one thing. They double up, they build that company, they recoup that money. They'll dream in their mind, I could have had more, but it's the time. It's those 20 years that are gone. I mean, you cannot tell me that you expect to have the same vigor of life at 45 that you did at 25. I mean, even just discussing things with women, right, it's gonna be like you're gonna be talking about things from your generation. She's gonna be talking about things from her generation. And when you find out what's going on in those DMs, your mind is going to flip upside down and inside out. You are not ready to discuss DMs, right? You've been in a marriage for 8, 10, 12 years and you want to come out and talk to younger women about what's happening in the DMs? No way. No way, right? So, this is why a lot of vasectomites are divorced men because they've been through the dark dimension of marriage, right? The Bachelor 2.0s, He Who Returns, right? The resurrected bachelors, the 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 phoenix in the ashes, as they say. They come out burning bright, and they never want to go back into that situation, right? They never want to go back into the situation. And that's why I say to you, know thyself. Know thyself. If you know you are not the type of person that will derive joy from folding those towels, from raising those kids, from paying those bills, from being that support structure all day, every day. Like, it is like having the highest pitch of problem consistently, right? You've seen like a married man or a mother or a wife watch their kid tumble and fall and feel nothing about it because it is like the 13th or 14th time before breakfast that this kid has tumbled and fall, right? He falls all the time, right? He's fallen over the table, he's fallen over the chair, he's fallen over the chandeliers and the lights if you have them, right? And if you don't have them, he'll find a chandelier and then jump all over it. And you'll just be like, you know, exhausted by trying to keep this person from hurting themselves. And if you don't want to live like that, know thyself. Get a vasectomy. And if you're uncertain, freeze your sperm first, right? Freeze your sperm first, right? So, what are the solutions to this monotony? It all really starts with acceptance. I mean, look at the statistics that are right in front of you. They're telling you that if you don't follow the bachelor life like the compass points to the north, I mean, you don't deviate for a single second, right? What will happen is you will become rarer and you will become fewer. And this, like I said before, is what makes the bachelor life valuable. The rarity of it, right? There aren't that many of us. So it's something that I think is valuable and worth protecting, right? So your first solution is always going to be to get a vasectomy, right? Remove the option and temptation of actually getting somebody pregnant, right? Because if you end up going back into the romance wars, what you're going to find is people who are full of conflict, right? And eventually you're going to end up regretting it. The same reason why you decided to proclaim Bachelor for Life is still existent, right? It's still real. So if you go back there and you haven't protected yourself, and it's inevitable that you'll go back. I mean, look at these numbers. They're telling you that everybody goes into the romance wars, and 90% of people will suffer through it, right? With disastrous, results. And regret will follow those results, right? But if you get a vasectomy, you'll always be safe and sound. The other thing is to remember that you are happy. I'm telling you right now, dear bachelor, you are single, you have a lack of intimacy. You are saving money, you can go to the gym, you can go to the park, you can play your video games, you can listen to your music, you can download your movies and your videos, you can buy the tech that you want. Brother, you are happy. You just don't know it yet, right? And you won't know it until you feel the misery of folding a towel for the thousandth time, of arguing over teaspoons for the fifth time, or loading a dishwasher for the fifth time today, right? You won't know that until you find that text message, that DM from another man in your wife's phone, right? And she lies to your face and tells you he's just a friend. And she lies to your friend and tells you it's somebody from church. And she lies and tells you it's somebody from work. You won't know that. You won't know that misery. And you should be grateful not to know that misery. Gratitude is the key to the bachelor life. And these statistics will demonstrate to you just how grateful you should be to have this rare gift of freedom and liberty. And if you waste it, there's really no coming back, right? There's really no coming back to it, right? Just remember, man, there's a guy out there that's buying sports equipment for a child who's not talented at that sport. There's another guy that's replacing a TV that a teenager broke because they were upset that they lost a video game playing against a stranger on the other side of the world who didn't even see them, right? There's a man out there bailing a teenager out of jail again, or visiting an adult child in rehab again, right? So be grateful. Be grateful that you have this gift of freedom. Be grateful that you can live an orderly, disciplined, structured life and you don't have these problems. Because if you go back into those romance wars, this is exactly what you're getting. You'll give everything to your kid, and one crack pipe will undo all of that work. It'll just destroy it in one day. One sip of alcohol will undo all your work. You know what I mean? You'll have a child in jail and needing rehab at the same time. I mean, you don't know what this future will bring. And the future is definite. What they're telling you is you're going to get married at a 99% rate. The older you get, the more likely this is. And if you don't, you're going to have kids. And if you have kids out of marriage, you can be sure that one of these problems is going to befall your children. And you are going to be held responsible for resolving that issue. So next, what you have to accept is that you are alone. Looking at these statistics again, you can clearly see that there are no bachelors really at 80% by the time you're 45. It goes up to 90% in the next decade, 95% the decade after that, and almost 99% of people have been married by the time that they're retired. So there are no bachelors past a certain age. The last real age of, I would say, wolf pack like structures in the bachelor life, where you and your boys are all single and another group of boys are all single and you all form your own crew or crews and live your own lives, that ends very quickly. Like right out of college, that's really over. Not to mention that you're all going to start working in different companies and different places. So you're really not going to stick around with your friends very long, right? So, but understand there are no bachelors past a certain age, right? And this occurred to me when I was when I was a younger bachelor, competing to be the best possible bachelor that I could be, right? Trying to get those passports. I'm talking about a 21 year old, right? So I mean, I'm a purebred bachelor. Trying to imagine what my 20s would be. And my 20s were wonderful. I traveled all over the world in my 20s, all over the world. Before I was even 30, I'd been to at least 15 countries, for sure, for sure. But ultimately, what then happened is I turned to look around me to see where was the competition, and there was none, right? In fact, everybody had either gotten married or had children, right? And it was just me. It's just me, right? That there was nobody else out there, you know. And at advanced ages, everybody's married, has kids, or has been divorced. And if you meet bachelors that are older, you will find the same pattern. They've either all been married, been divorced. Many of them are bachelors and vasectomites because of an unsuccessful marriage and a devastating divorce. Just an absolutely financial catastrophe of a divorce. But understand that you're alone. If you're going to walk this bachelor life, these statistics tell you that you are not going to find many bachelors. And I'm going to be honest with you, we're different. We are so different. Like a lifelong vasectomite and a divorced vasectomite, like we share a lot in common, but having children means that divorced men have limits. They have limits as far as they can go. I mean, they can go pretty far, but they always need to be attached to someone, to the family, right? The last point that I really want to make is that you have to take your bachelor life very seriously. It is a wonderful life to have. It is truly a gift. It is as joyful as it sounds. It really is if you embrace it. But you do need to take it very seriously. You need to appreciate how rare it is. You need to protect that. And how do you do that? By setting standards. You need to have a standard for yourself that is unbreakable. And the standard is the vasectomy. You need to get that vasectomy and protect your bachelorhood, protect your commitment, protect your seed and your solitude. I promise you, this one move, this one move will give you peace of mind. I guarantee you peace of mind. Because if you are still biologically looking to spread your seed, which you cannot help it, it's your imperative, and you start to fail in accomplishing that, it's going to cause problems for you. But you're also going to be conflicted. Your mind will be telling you one thing while your body wants to do something else. And eventually you're going to lose control of one of them. You're either going to become very depressed or you're going to lose control of your body and do something that you're going to regret, right? So you need to take this seriously, right? You need to set standards and you need to maintain those standards. And the best way to do that is to get a vasectomy, right? And even after you get a vasectomy, you need to try to be an example to others, right? But don't get caught up in people's dramas. People will hear that you're a bachelor and assume that you have freedom to entertain their problems, and they'll use you as a crutch, and that will disrupt your own life, right? But what these statistics tell us here is that most men, up to 99%, are benders. We also know that 2% of men are vasectomites. And from those, like many of them, are married, divorced, and have kids. And many vasectomites do that because they're married, divorced, and get kids. Most benders don't get a vasectomy because they don't think they're going to need one. They think they'll be pulling this off, right? But also we notice that the real bachelors are actually under 25 years old, right? So really, I don't think that 25 is a healthy age for you to live in the solitude. You really want to experience life, and part of experiencing life, I beg your pardon, means engaging with people in a meaningful way. But people can be dangerous. Intimacy can be dangerous for a bachelor. I don't mean like physically, like they'll threaten you, but somebody falling in love with you and anticipating a future with you. And if that future doesn't happen, they can get disgruntled and they can get quite vengeful and they can look to blame somebody for that. And they'll blame you, right? So, there's people who might think that getting a vasectomy at a young age, under 25, while you're still a purebred bachelor is a problem. I think you should get one at any age. If you have any doubts, freeze your sperm first, right? It's inexpensive, but very effective, and you can freeze your sperm, and you can get a vasectomy, and you can act with confidence. But if you don't, your bachelor life is going to fail, and these statistics bear that out. You are going to fail. You are going to mess this up. It's not just me that's telling you, here are the numbers right in front of you. And if you don't get your vasectomy, I mean, if you don't get it early enough, you don't freeze those sperms and you don't get it early enough. I got mine right in my 30s, right at the peak of my life, because I didn't want to destroy what I had already had, right? But if you're not sure that you're going to be successful, I'm here to tell you, you're going to be successful. If you're not sure that your dreams are going to come true, I'm telling you, your dreams are going to come true. And I'm also telling you, those wives, those kids, those girlfriends. So this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Again, and as always, I really appreciate your attention. Get a vasectomy, protect your life, protect your seed, and protect yourself from those kids. This is the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, he who remains. Have a nice day.